I worked in a hospital night shift. There was an operator on duty, a PBX phone operator that handled all the calls in and out of the hospital at night. And he told me of two spirits in the hospital that over the years people have called in on. One spirit he told me about was a doctor with no legs, and the other spirit was a young ghost girl. So I went about my duties every night, did rounds of the floors, rounds of the outer areas. This is really startling. One night I was on 1 East. There's a little small hallway and then an open area with two elevators that went up to the floors on the east wing. And as I rounded the corner on 1 East, in the corner of that small elevator area, I saw a ghost girl who appeared to be about age 9 or 10, all in white, and it was a faint white. It was like a gray white, misty. She had long straight hair, and it went down along the edge of her eyes. You could see her eyes, but just barely. Her hair was like almost covering her face, long hair, and like a little round mouth, almost like she was saying, "Oh." So I rounded the corner, and I saw her in the corner of this room. I looked at her, and my adrenaline just like kicked off. I could just feel my energy just like really jerk up. And as I watched her, she faded in what looked like an old incandescent bulb at night. When you turn the bulb off, the light would dim and it would just like cool off down to a central filament and then disappear. That's what happened with this girl. And I was thankful that she had vanished, of course. I was quietly revved up, and I turned around the corner back out the way I came, and I walked a little bit, and one of the transporters, a guy that worked at night, he saw me, and I looked kind of unusually, said, "Hey, what's going on?" And I told him about it, and he was just like, "Oh man," he couldn't handle it. But I saw that ghost girl. My intuition says that she was either waiting for somebody to come back down the elevator like her parents, or that she was up on one of the floors and passed away and ended up there somehow. But I did see the ghost girl on 1 East. It was pretty crazy. Another night I was doing rounds in the hospital. I was on 3 East, which was formerly the birth center. And also there was a pediatric section there, children that were sick. And there was one small hallway that went off one of the main hallways that had 3 offices on each side, and then it just ended at a flat wall. And over the past year, we've had people like move their office in there and then move their office out. And it was just like people just didn't want to be in that hallway in those offices. And I don't know why. I never really asked. It wasn't my business. I just noticed that they were occupied then unoccupied, back and forth. So one night I was walking past this hallway. I looked to my right and I looked down the hallway. And about halfway up the hallway was a physician with a white lab coat, dark hair, dark rimmed glasses, thin. And again, he was kind of wispy, but it was mostly white from the lab coat. And he was walking up toward me, and he turned to his right near where a door was by the wall, but down a ways, and just disappeared into the wall. And I was like, what was that? And then I kind of looked back at my memory of it. I'm like, what did I just see? And I didn't notice he had anything from the bottom of his lab coat, like he didn't have legs. And if I saw him in like a lineup, a police lineup, I could identify him, but he wasn't clear on his features. But I would get his height and weight and the dark hair and the glasses. I think I could probably pick him out. It was just pretty peculiar. And this third one was especially heavy duty. My boss was a former New York police, a nice guy, but just no BS. He would talk sports with you, but if there was a question about something or how something happened or the information gathered, if you didn't have that information, he'd be like, you're deficient. What's going on? You'd be very, very stiff in that regard. Are we going to do better next time? Like just really kind of stiff like that. And he liked me because I did a really good job at night, and I never had to call him. I rarely called him on, assistance at night, things like that, for making judgment calls on things. So anyways, one day he goes, hey, come in here. Come in my office. So I went in, and he goes, I want you to do extra rounds of the cancer center at night, maybe a couple. And I said, well, okay. And the cancer center was on the first floor of the hospital. It was actually attached to the hospital. And I don't know if it was technically like a wing of the hospital, but it was incorporated into it. It was just the hallways just connected to it, and there was an elevator there that we shared. So I made rounds through there, and I never felt good in that cancer center. It just felt like the walls felt almost staticky, and just walking through there, it was just a very dismal, kind of a dismal negative feeling. So one night I walked through there, and it was a relatively long hallway, and then it broke off into like a rectangle where you could walk down a short hallway and then up a short hallway, and there would be like a big rectangular, almost like an office center in the center. But on the sides, there were these little clinical rooms as you went around. I walked up to one of the clinical rooms. The door was open, and there was a man sitting at the desk facing the wall in front of him. So I was looking at his left shoulder as I was at the doorway, and I was about no more than 7 feet away from him at that point. I was in the doorway, it was open. He's sitting at the desk, he's looking forward, completely quiet, not moving. I didn't say, excuse me, what are you doing in here at night? Because I thought he may have been one of the cancer physicians. I don't know. Maybe he got a call that he had to work on somebody. I had no idea what was going on. Usually there was nobody in there, occasional housekeeper. So I stood in the doorway figuring my presence there and my motion in the hallway, he will at least look at me. And if he looks at me, I can say, hey, good morning, sir. You working here late at night? Or at least like question him on what's going on. So I moved around in the doorway to try to attract his attention. He just kept looking straight forward. And this went on for about 10 to 12 seconds, which is a pretty long time when you want to get somebody's attention. It was like, how come this guy isn't looking at me? And then he turned his head slowly at me, looked at me for about half a second, and then turned his head slowly back and continued looking at the wall. Said nothing. So I just continued walking and left. And those are 3 of my apparition experiences at the hospital. It was a pretty heavy-duty place. I did many paranormal investigations there. They were all with just electronic voice recorder. I didn't use cameras because I didn't want to violate any hospital policy. Have a good week, everyone.